Thanks for joining us for this amazing event about AI agents for product folks. I'm guessing we have a bunch of product managers and founders, engineering here. Maybe by raise of hand, who is a product manager here in the room? Okay. Who is a...
Don't be shy, huh? It's okay.
designer? No designers?
No, there is one, yeah.
Who is an engineer? No engineer? Oh, engineer, kind of.
Yeah.
And who is then a founder? Okay, cool. We have a full house. Awesome. So we'll structure this talk in two conversation topics. The first one about how PMs can use or founders can use AI to accelerate and build better products faster. And then the second one will be about how to actually build AI features within your products. And so for that, we'll just start with a quick round of introductions. So maybe if every speaker can introduce himself and tell us, why should we listen to you tonight? Like, why are you on stage and not the other folks here?
I'll let you start as you are our guest.
I don't think you should listen to us. Or even if you do, then obviously temper it with advice from founders. Founders love speaking about themselves, so temper it. My name is Ayan, co-founder and CEO of Ampersand. We are a developer platform for user-facing and product integrations. So companies like 11x and Clary, they use us for user-facing integrations with Salesforce, HubSpot, and other go-to-market systems.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us tonight. So I'm Mehdi, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Cycle, which is a product feedback platform. And so what we do is we help teams centralize all of their customer feedback and extract insights out of this mess on autopilot. And so why you should listen? I mean, we've been building AI features for the past 3 years, so we made like a ton of mistakes, and there are a few things we got right, so hopefully that can help some of you. And also we're building a product for product folks, right, in the AI era, so we've been thinking a lot about, okay, how is AI reshaping the world of shipping products? And so yeah, I'm happy, we have like a lot of strong opinions on that, and so I'm happy to share some of those opinions and see if they resonate.
Yeah. And for myself, I'm Timoté. I'm the CEO of Dualoop. We're a consulting firm specializing in product management, product design. We're based in Belgium, so I'm just here for the week. So don't worry, you won't hear me here talking about me after that. And probably where you should be talking, if listening to what I say, I've been working in the tech industry for the past 13 years, so I mostly lived the pre-AI era. And I'm still now working with a full range of companies ranging from not making revenue to making a lot. So I've seen a lot of things going on in AI, and happy to share that view. And we'll see definitely where the conversation leads. Huh?
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. So I wanted to start with like that popular saying, I think it was Jensen Huang from NVIDIA who said, AI won't replace you, but somebody with AI will actually replace you. And so I wanted to like chat about that. What's your take on that, and how have you seen PMs and founders leverage AI to actually enhance themselves and be better than people without AI? Maybe.
Yeah, I can start. First of all, I deeply resonate with that sentence that can seem a little bit bullshit, but I really think that we should see AI as a way to enhance humans as opposed to trying to replace them. And as a founder building products, I think I've myself used AI a lot, and I think it's underused or it's used in the wrong way by many product folks, and those who use it in the right way are really like 10x better than the others. And maybe like one example of I think how people should use AI a little bit more, especially when you ship products, is taking different perspectives in your work, right? Shipping products is a lot of a translator sort of work. You need to understand the perspective of your engineer, of your customers, of different persona, of your CEO. And there's a technique I came across, which I really like, which is called the six thinking hats, where you, at the end of a brainstorm or like a strategy session, you think about, okay, now let's put a different hat and look at this with different perspectives. Like, okay, the skeptical hat, the overly optimistic hat, the data-driven hat, the emotional hat. And that really helps converge towards like a much better idea in the end. And so, yeah, I discovered this, I have like a side, like weird hobbies that I do like theoretical physics. and I use AI a lot. And one of the prompts I use the most is, okay, I'm a huge fan of like Einstein, for instance, obviously, or like Richard Feynman. And so often at the end of some work, I will just ask, hey, like, please critically review with the perspective of Feynman, Einstein, and maybe like an ambitious reviewer of a tier 1 review. And I always get like so many like super interesting insights, and then I iterate and I go further. And I think with shipping products, it's really underused, where like the best product folks I talk to, they use such prompts all the time. Like, hey, actually, like I finished the requirements. I won't send it to the engineers directly. I will first use a prompt. Hey, like, what would a skeptical engineer like think about this spec? What would they say? Or what would the CEO think about this spec? Like, is it like top-down enough? Is it clear enough? And even like, why not? Like, what would Shreyas Doshi think about this spec? Or what would Lenny Rachitsky think about this spec? Or maybe like what Steve Jobs would think about this spec. And so it's just an example of how you can use AI in novel ways to really be like 10x better at your work. And I think, yeah, the people who do that are the ones that will replace you. It's not the AI by itself. I think it's really humans using AI. It's the collaboration between AI and humans that makes the difference.
Yeah, what I've seen a couple of things that are interesting. Definitely, when we started looking at and asking to our consultant and in our network, so how many of you are using actually AI on a weekly basis, on a daily basis? We clearly see that the adoption is not that great yet, whereas we see the difference. And what is really interesting is, for example, on when you don't know anything on a topic, it's just to say, okay, how broad is that thing, and what should I know? That really helps, and just say, let's, because you can do that on Google, right? You start typing and then you start reading a lot of articles, whereas now you use whatever, let's say, things that would be public. You start asking, and you have a structured first view on what, and help you to reopen your mind and say, okay, what am I missing? And the second thing that what most of them are actually doing is having a double check on their specs and others, say, am I seeing that the right way, and what am I missing? And clearly, even in a consulting firm like ours, when we start doing an offer where we have to have a structured document and an opinion on something, this is something we use a lot. And they say, hey, this is my deck, this is usually what I say, and this is what I know on the market. Am I right, or what am I missing? And that helps you already quickly have a confrontation to broad web with all the goods and the bad things, but at least that helps you have a first opinion and identify your blind spots.
So I've been in software, enterprise software for 20 years now, and I've seen like multiple like generations of software come and go. The first one was cloud, right, and then mobile happened a little bit on the consumer side, and I think now it's more AI. People like, and we have a bunch of customers who are AI developers, right? At the core of enterprise software, I think that people really don't care about whether it's AI, cloud, whatever it is. They actually care about the outcomes, right? So I think that I am not buying linear to, like for the tool. I just want to get to product quicker, right?
Yeah.
Faster, better, right? So I think that the world is always shaped around outcomes, right? And AI and the current iteration of it, this is the third generation, right? Predictive and declarative and now generative. The third generation is getting us to outcomes faster, right? Like I'm having a conversation with Einstein that's great. Like my knowledge is, the outcome is faster here. So anything that we are building in the current iteration, I think if we are building product, if you are thinking about faster, better outcomes, I think AI is an accelerator. Right? And AI agents are promising to do it for you instead of you buying software and then kind of you deploying it and doing it painfully. You're like, I'm just going to sip some, wine and drinks, and the software is going to be autonomous. So I think overall, it's not wise not to invest in AI, whether it's product building or product supporting.
I'd love to double click on that because it resonates. It's like the AI doesn't replace the fundamentals of building a great product. Right?
Outcomes.
Right? It's like it's still in the end it's a wonderful tool, but it's still a tool. I think it should still be seen as a tool, and yeah, there are like too many like products out there that like just follow the hype, and they say like they do AI, but they can't answer the first most basic question, like what customer problem are you solving? Like forget about the technology, forget about AI. What is it that you're solving? Like what do you know about your customers? What do you know about their context? What do you know about the market? And surprisingly often they can't answer that question.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm also an angel investor, and you will laugh on the amount of pitch I'm receiving and say, hey, we are an AI company. I'm like, okay, I don't give a shit about the fact that you're an AI company. I'm about what problem are you solving? Because, and it's something we discuss a lot, and I really believe that AI is a given, right? So at some point, every company will probably leverage AI in a way or another. So this is not a differentiator. Okay, it may help you just now be making the difference for 6 months or 12 months because your competitor will take a bit more time to integrate. But ultimately, on the long run, if you think about really the long term, you'll be even. So forget about AI and refocus about what are your customer problems and how fast can you solve and what outcome are you delivering. And then only realize that AI is just a mean, not an end. It may help you to go faster, and there's two ways. I was just saying, you as a product manager to get access to data or structure that. And the second is you as in your product, how fast and how can you leverage AI to hasten the impact that you are having. But ultimately, that's not a differentiator.
Have you guys worked or seen Cursor?
Yeah.
Right? So the interesting part about Cursor today, this was happening today in our office, where somebody who's doing product, right, was basically on Cursor, and they are not shipping code, right? So they are not reading the code the way an engineer would, right? But this person was literally chatting with the code base, right? And basically saying that, is this part good? Is that part good, right? So I think the way products will be built is not going to probably be the way products are going to be built today. You know, the future is like it's a very interesting future where a PM was just chatting with Cursor and getting some insights about the code base that otherwise he or she would have to actually get an engineer in and like, can you understand? Like, so I think this person was getting to a product requirements document like way faster without an edge in the loop. And that's like fascinating because it's happened like in the last 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
And I think that's really that's an interesting one because the many like builders focus on how can you make people more productive with AI. How do you make them gain time? I think that's not where you can have the most value with AI. For me, how I look at it is like look at the tasks that take a lot of energy for people to do, and those tasks they're important, but they require a lot of energy. And those tasks, they're typically tasks that don't get done. They're like people will procrastinate on. They won't do it or they can't. Like you want to ship an app, but you first need to learn how to code. Or you're a designer and you want to ship a prototype, but it's like you won't do it. It's too much effort, too much energy. And so that's where AI for me can have like the most impact. It's like making possible things that you wouldn't do otherwise. If you already do the task and it makes you 30% productive, I mean, by all means, like ship that feature that will make the person 30% productive. But that's not, I believe, where the most of the value is. And so, I mean, as a like product builder, that's really how we are thinking about implementing our AI features. We look at, okay, what are the core jobs to be done in our product? In those jobs, what are the ones that require the most energy for people to do? And typically, they're the ones that they don't do. They wish they do it, but they don't. And those are the ones when I think you can have like the most impact.
The one thing though that I wonder is how much there is an expert bias in what we're saying, in the sense that, because something we discussed earlier in saying that if you really want to take advantage of AI, is that you must be an expert and you must all be able to be critic about the output of what you're getting. And the same goes about building an app. If you're not a developer, if you're not being able, will you really be able to leverage an AI that will do it for you? Maybe for a quick and dirty prototype, maybe. And I'm not taking out the long run, because maybe in the very long run, the software will be built completely with AI. And I don't know if that would be even possible, but I guess so. But for the time being, can you really build something, and can you really have a product that would be built by something for you? The same goes with the low code, because everyone thinks that, like Webflow and others, and people say, oh yeah, but you can now build a website or whatever without having any code thing. But I challenge everyone that does not have any knowledge about how an application is built to use Webflow.
I think, that's a good point. It's and we come back to, like, is AI replacing humans or is it enhancing humans? I think like all those like V0 and like bullsh and bullsh, they're like amazing prototyping tool. You can't code, you want to ship a prototype, you're a PM, you're a designer. Now you can do it, and you can inspire people with a prototype. It won't replace shipping like a scalable product that's fast, that has like a great UX, but now you can prototype. And so I think there are two, one use case where you can have a lot of impact is making possible something that wouldn't be, like building a prototype, now you can. And the other one is if you're already an expert in a field, AI can make you like 10x better and or faster with tricks like the ones I talked about, where like using personalities or having access to Einstein or Shreyas. And that I think is a very important point, is like, if you don't know the topic you work on, I don't think AI will help you produce good results. If you cannot say, if you cannot critically review the output of AI and say this is good or this is not good enough, I need to like orient it, then I think we fall into the trap of maybe like the AI SDRs and stuff. You just like ship more of low quality stuff. And I think it's a very bad use of AI. I think AI should help you increase the quality, not increase the volume of low quality stuff.
But, maybe, how many software engineers or developers do we have in the room? Okay, so raise your hand higher, because I just want to see. And then out of you, how many of you are using AI to help and speed up your development work? Yeah, all of them. That's great. Serious. And maybe can you explain what are you doing with that and how you're using it?
So for us, for me and my teams, we use Cursor as well. We typically use it to, for me, the best use case is to understand legacy code that someone else has written. That's been debugging, that code mainly, bootstrapping something, getting a head start basically. It's more something to speed up, not to deliver the
Yeah. What about you?
Writing all the code for me.
Is it?
So, like,
Okay.
instead of me writing, I'm just like, just do it.
So you just prompted.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I could write it, but it's faster for me to tell.
Okay.
So, but you can judge the quality of the output. So you ask them to write it, and then you can say, hey, no, this is not quite.
Small
Yeah.
pieces at a time.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like that.
Ah, nice. And how much are you already satisfied with the output?
Yeah, 95% most of the time. 90% of the time, that's
Okay.
I'm not trying to Devin, the AI code developer, so that's a startup that promises to kind of add like a junior web developer to your team, and so it costs a bunch of $100 per month. Kind of like they promise that it replaces an engineer, and so that's also like you mentioned like AI SDRs, where these startups promise to cut out the human from the sales process, where in the engineering process, like you with Devin, you're kind of cutting out an engineer. What's your take on like having a human in the loop versus completely removing people from like the building or sales process? And how do you find that balance when you're building an AI product or just a product? Like like you're thinking of like we're going to remove that feature and like or create that AI feature, but keep the human in the loop to validate what the AI does. Or like where do you put that balance?
That's a deep one.
So one of the fastest, actually the fastest AI SDR company, 11x, is a customer of Ampersand, right? So they're kind of driving all the CRM traffic through us. So I know their founders, and right. So they think that there are certain jobs which are very repetitive. And if you look at the SDR, you prospect, you send a message, right? So it's very repetitive to the point where 90% of the work is repetitive, right? So you can deploy a digital worker in that environment which can do 80% of the job. Not even 90%, but 80% of the job, so 80% of the job. And in some industries where the message doesn't need to be customized to the person, right? Let's say you're just selling cardboards. You just want to actually, send the message as quickly as possible, as fast as possible, as simple as possible, right? That is, AISDR is actually pretty effective there, right? So I think that if you look at full autonomy and full AI agent autonomy and zero, right? So 0 to 100%. It's just a matter of context. So in some cases, the context and the circumstances and the problem might lend itself towards this, which is Devin. Devin is, we tried it. I don't think it's there yet, but we can see like it's trying to put some, PRs that we'd otherwise not do. Like, who wants to write test cases, right? Yeah. I don't think nobody wants to write test cases, right? So our test case coverage is like 60%. We can get it to 78%, with Devin. And that's good, I think, that for $500 a month, right? Do we need it right now? I don't know, right? So I think that 0 to 100%, there will be cases where it's fully autonomous. I mean, Waymo is fully autonomous. So I'm sure that a Salesforce integration is easier problem to solve. Like if you can put Waymo into, in say SF streets, right? So it just depends on like where you are in the context of the problem. And then it's also, Waymo was already like autonomous a long time back. Humans caught up to the trust factor, like, okay, maybe this is possible, right? So the technology, let's say you have a 0 to 100 scale, you can deploy an agent which does it fully autonomous, but maybe I am as a human, I don't trust it. So I'm like, okay, I don't want full autonomy, scale it back to 70%, and then I take control, I put myself in the loop, and kind of I'm happy with that kind of equilibrium, as you know, but then you may have a competitor who's got 90% and is executing faster than you. So now it's a question of like what happens, like maybe you have to.
Yeah.
So I guess to.
It's a very interesting take because I've seen I have to retrieve that research on especially on the healthcare industry. Everything is saying we can identify, we can spot a disease much faster, and the accuracy rate is really close from what a human being or what the trained doctor would reach. And actually, even with the same level of accuracy, people will always favor having a human being doing it versus having a machine. And it goes down to the trust. So can you really trust a machine, and the fact that it's really not readable and you're not being able to really understand what is happening behind makes it very reluctant.
I like that word as well. It's like it's not about the technology. Sure, I think the technology can do it. I think it can like do a fairly good job at the SDR work when it's like not a very complex product. The question is like, should you do it, or like will they? Are the humans that receive the messages, are they ready to take it or not? Yeah. And I think that's the big question right now. There's a lot of I think junk content out there, and so for me it's like there's the trust aspect. Will people trust it? And I think you shouldn't try and trick people. Like if it's not a human writing the message, pretending that it's a human. I don't know. I'm not sure it's a good thing to do.
There's a lot of ethical question behind it. Like as we were saying, it's not because you can do it that you should be doing it. The obvious one are really content creation. Huh? Okay, yes, you can flood and you can create 100,000 page on SEO and to try to build up on that. But on the long run, if everyone is doing that, basically what you're doing is just lowering the bar of the quality that is overall present. And yes, you may have a competitive advantage short term, but in the long run, you're just not helping anyone. And it's the same with SDR. If everyone is doing AI-based hierarchy, great, everyone will be spam, and what you're doing is just complexifying the problem. So we're just creating false problems and false solutions, and then we create the problem of tomorrow, they will create again the solution. Think about Google and all what they're doing on the email authority. So we're just complexifying the process of identifying spam. So we are increasing the technicalities and ultimately increasing the cost of operating for everyone just because of the spam and the volume of email that are trash.
Because the SDR is not deciding how much trash to send. It's humans.
Yeah, of course, because ultimately it's still a human behind.
Yeah,
but
so it's a
think about the
human
full
being deciding that I'll send 50,000 messages instead of 50.
Yeah.
So it's not an AI SDR problem, it's a human problem.
It's
But
how you
all-
use the tool.
Because
Yeah,
the
but it's-
configuration is not the right.
Yeah, but it's all about humans, right?
Yeah. So it boils down to like how you use the tools and
Yeah, and so I think like my heuristic for that is I think you give like good examples with Waymo and the AI SDR for like that says chips, like it's very easy. It's for me, by all means do it if you don't reduce the quality and you don't break the trust. So I think as the quality bar is met and you don't break the trust, then like do it as much as you can. The issue today is like there's too much of lowering quality and too much of breaking trust. That's happening.
contrarian thinking. There's a lot of LinkedIn AI SDR, right? So I've been thinking about this, right? 11x went from 0 to 20 million ARR in 12 months. So I'm like, why? You know, like 0 to 20 million ARR is a very fast ramp, right?
Yeah.
So I was asking like, you know, other sales leaders, they're like, I want to reach my TAM as quickly as possible. So it is basically sales leadership deciding to deploy these, right? And essentially that is generating a bunch of revenue for a lot of these AI companies, which is the interesting part.
I like it. I like what the problem is not the tool, right? It's like a fool with a tool is still a fool, and so it's like how do you use the tool? But we come back to it's a tool. It remains a tool.
But the interesting part about building these products are they have so much data in that journey from 0 to 20 million ARR in 12 to 18 months. They have now accumulated a bunch of data because customers have given them a bunch of data for this to work, right? And because they have so much data now there is a starting of a data moat occurring, right? So I think it's ethically a little questionable, but I just don't see it reversing. It is a one-way kind of.
You're right. Well, it's definitely a first mover advantage in this case. Huh? So being the one and having something, because there is a bit of a FOMO. Huh? So why all those SDR thing is working? Just because everyone wants to be successful, everyone wants to sell, so everyone is trying that. Well, which is creating definitely a movement, which will make it successful or not. Because ultimately you need data to be able to improve those processes. And if you have the data and you have people paying for that, this is the best way to learn. Huh? And the good thing is that people are paying for it. So.
Sure.
I want to move to the second part of the discussion, like how to actually build AI features. Who in the room is building a product with AI or we're actively working on AI features in the product? Everyone.
Yeah, everyone.
So well, that's obvious. Like
so it's easier. Who is not?
But so everybody is trying either to to sprinkle AI wherever it's useful, but then comes the question like, how do you design AI features that like really enhance the core features of your product and actually solve real problems instead of like creating new problems or like solving problems that do not exist? What's your take on that? I know like Mehdi, you appeared on a podcast recently where you had the AI bullshit test.
The bullshit AI test.
What's your framework on analyzing whether you're building a good like AI feature or is it just an AI wrapper or like some generative function that is not enhancing the core feature of the product?
The bullshit AI test, it's a sequence of 3 questions that you need to answer. And based on your answer, we'll know if your AI is bullshit or not. The first one is basically what I said earlier, like forget about AI. How does your product work without AI? What problem are you solving? What are you understanding about your customers? What's your object model? Like what are the objects you have in your product? So that is the first part. Is the fundamentals of building a great product don't change with AI. You need to be able to answer that question. Then it's like, how does AI make the core of what you do 10x better or faster? Not a side use case, the core, and not 2x, 10x. And that's like a very important question. We at Cycle, we built a lot of bullshit AI. Like we start with what's easy and we ship like a bit of AI in the editor, but people don't use Cycle to edit documents, so it's a bit bullshit. You really need to think about what is the core and how I can make that 10x better. And then the third question is how easy would it be to get your AI job done with a bunch of prompt templates and a ChatGPT tab open? If the answer is fairly easy, then your AI is probably bullshit, and probably at the next release of OpenAI, you might just get destroyed. And so underlying of that, like how do you make it such that it's not easy to deliver your AI job with prompt templates and ChatGPT? It's about the data, right? Like what unique data, what unique context do you have in your product that's not easily, something that you can copy and paste into a ChatGPT tab? So that's the input. And then the output, like, is it just like a summary? Like the AI writes you something and you copy it? Or is it some concrete actions that are performed in your product? And if the output of the AI is actions in your product, that's much harder to replicate with ChatGPT. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about bullshit AI.
If you have to justify when you pitch in the thing that there is AI behind, it's probably that it's a nice to have and you're probably not the right direction. Take the SDR automation. The fact that it's AI does not really matter. Huh? So SDR and just about acquiring customer is the key on the way you're doing it. Okay, great. Now we have a new capabilities that is ramping up the standard and then make it more efficient. But ultimately, the need is there, and the fundamental of understanding and solving a real customer problem is the foundation of having something healthy. And I think quite too often is that we have to start by the bullshit thing. We had a lot of debate at Dualoop as a consulting firm on how we advise customers on doing that. And we had some debate because there were a lot of customers saying, yeah, we must go AI, we must do something. And our first reaction was saying, yeah, but your idea is stupid and that won't bring anything to your customers. But what we realized that raising awareness internally and just building things, exploring, start by just taking the low-hanging fruit and the basic fundamental of things that would not necessarily drive anything, but helps you to create awareness and to test, prove, and engage with your customers until you reintegrate those AI capabilities at the core of your application. So at first we were saying, there is no value, just focus on the core. But now I would say, yeah, sure, explore. Just take any adjacent thing where you're having low risk, low impact things, and then just integrate AI, and then see, but engage customers and realize that it's just the beginning of your journey, and we now afterwards address the tough topics.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if I study the breakout products of the last 12 months, right? One is Cursor, the other one is this 11x. There's some breakout products, right? How they're thinking about the product is very interesting. They are not thinking about traditional SaaS UI UX, right? In fact, I was speaking with the CTO of 11x. They're like, we don't need a UX, because our customers are not even logging in, but they're happy to pay 100 grand, 200 grand to us, right? Cursor is also interesting. They took a VS Code engine and created a completely new collaboration UX on top of code, right? Which is unthinkable, in some ways, and they went from 0 to 100 million ARR, right? So I think that the breakout products, lovable as well, the other one, StackBlitz, for example, under Wasm under the hood, right? So all of these newer breakout products that are doing really well, they're rethinking the UX layer, the foundation. That is one. Secondly, they are also rethinking how people will access data in their products, right? So that is two. And third, I think what is happening is Cursor, as he mentioned, it's now become an onboarding tool, right? I'm trying to understand legacy code bases, putting in new engineers in. So they are also generating new type of data that you just said, right? So that becomes a data moat, right? So essentially, those three things put together is kind of what all the breakout products will have, those like under the hood, like 11x and AI SDRs, when they break out, what they are doing is they now have access to all the customer data systems. You're connecting to Salesforce, you're connecting to Intercom, you're connecting to Cycle, right? So you have all
You're
access,
putting all the data.
right? So that context, now they're like under the hood, they're replacing the customer data platform. But under the at the core, it's a AISDR product. So that I think we should think about. Like, how do you think about it?
I like the question, like looking at, okay, all those breakout products, what do they do that others don't? And I think with that question, there's one thing that they also nail a lot, and which is like under leverage with AI, it's the time to value, right? You go to V0 or Lovable, the website is a prompt, right? Like, what do you want to ship? tell about your idea of an app. I think one that I like as well is Gamma, which it's like a PowerPoint, but you start with a prompt. And I think that every product can get inspiration from that. Like, how do you, in the first minute, you bring like a ton of value, and then you hook the customers. Then there's the question, I mean, will they succeed at creating a moat and defensibility? I mean, if you can have like a very nice early hook, but then, okay, if you build a presentation with a prompt, but then if you don't have the product that helps you iterate on your slides or change the font or change the template, there's a lot of table stakes that still need to happen behind after that initial time to value that you still need to build. And so there's the question of the retention, right? Are they going to be able to like retain all of those customers they're able to acquire very fast? I hope they will. But that's still a question.
Yeah, I mean the brand, like we've talked about Cursor like 50 times. We're not even talking about our own products, right? So I think brand also matters. So these accelerated brands matter. The other thing that I just wanted to add was like we are designing systems so that humans can consume them, right? I think we also need to design systems so that agents can consume them. And agents don't care about whether your button is pink or blue. Agents will just get the data and move on. They don't get bored. They don't get impatient. They don't get frustrated. They'll just be at it constantly, right? So I think the UI layer for software, which is today is a like human-centered UI, I think we have a serious question in front of us that as a product designer, are we designing for a human or are we designing for an agent to access the data? Right?
It's interesting.
Which is like interesting. Like now you have agent authentication, delegation access, permissions, and do we actually, like is Cursor going to eat Figma's lunch? We don't know. These are like foundational questions.
But Des Trainer, one of the founder of Intercom, saying even 2 years ago that the first job would disappear would be the designer job. Because of the absence of you basically removing the interface of the topic.
Machines don't care.
The one thing I would say is that there you have the traditional software, and say if you already have an application or a software business already running, so then the question is, okay, how do you integrate eventually AI to the thing? And then you would say, but basically that's just an improvement of what you're doing. But then you were saying that, and what I like what you're saying is that there is a new era, and say, okay, but forget about the existing, forget about your standards. What are the new problems that you can solve, and then how can you solve it differently based on the new capabilities? And what you describe is there are two ones. And the one is really empowering the one that are still building traditional software, Cursor, basically. So you help engineers building the software the way they were doing and then the way you used to. And then you have the one building completely new solution to new problems, and then building interface of being an application, thinking that agent will be the one consuming it is definitely an additional forward step in the process.
So I have a different take on the designer. I think it's going to become an even more important role. I think it's like APIs, right? There was also the wave where you need to build an API first product, and the API becomes more important than your UX. It is important, right, for developers to build integrations, and you need to document your API well. And now with agents, you need to. We did it like recently with our API. We used O1 and we asked, okay, how can we like document it better so that agents can access it faster, so that companies like Ampersand, they can use our API documentation and build solid integrations very fast. But I think it doesn't replace So with AI, there's no technical moat. Everyone is using the same models. So you don't really differentiate yourself technically. But then how do you differentiate yourself? I believe it's in the user experience. Because I mean, that's a belief that I have. I don't know if I'm right, but
And the assumption is the user is the human.
yes, the user is because for me, that's my assumption is that the core of the value of AI is in enhancing the human, not in. I mean, let's talk about like agents. For me, like most people talk about when they think about agents, they talk about like autonomous, like agentic workflows. You have an orchestrator, you have like agents that are trained to do like one task very well, and the orchestrator does everything, and basically the human is not there in the loop. And I think it's great. It's an extension of automation. For me, I see it as like a smarter model. That's what O1 is, by the way. It's like just adding like a thinking layer, like a reasoning layer on top of the models. That's exciting, but I don't think it's what's most exciting about agents. For me, what I like about the agent idea is that when I think agent, I think human. And when I think human, I think personality, skills, I think collaboration. Hey, like could I have my agents in my app like real time, and they're skilled? Maybe like I have an Ampersand agent that's skilled on the Ampersand documentation. Maybe I have Shreyas. Maybe I have my CEO, or maybe I have like my engineer, and I can collaborate with them. I can tag them in a comment. They can come and write in real time in my doc. And so for me, that's what's super exciting. It's extending the idea of collaboration to, you don't just collaborate with other humans, you also collaborate with AI. And for me, then the builders, they're not alone anymore. Like, okay, maybe like you put your headset and you start shipping. It feels like you're alone, but you're together with like your agents. And that I believe is super exciting. And for designers, like designing that new experience of how in products people will collaborate with AI, I think it's like it's a super exciting challenge.
Plus, we have to keep in mind that we're always talking about prompts, but not everything works with a prompt. So because the efficiency that you gain is all sometimes marginal, and there is also a bit of a fatigue. Yeah? So if everything you have to do is via a prompt, I'm not sure that our life will be very fancy. So probably there will be a mix of both. But I like what you're saying on how do you leverage them and having those agents working with you. And alongside your journey.
That's it. It's for me, like what I get excited about is like agent to human collaboration, and not so much agent to agent. I mean, agent to agent collaboration is just an extension of the models getting better and better. I mean, that's how I think about it.
Agent to agent collaboration, like a robot walks into a Waymo.
Like that one.
Maybe the use case. I think that's right. And what we are also seeing, I think the assumptions that you're making is like Meta's layer code, right? So use like transformer architecture is not going to be the last AI architecture, right? So there are different architectures that also will come. Right now it's generative transformer architecture, right? So I think that we are very early. This is like 1990 of internet, or maybe 82, or I don't know, maybe it's 1960 of internet, right? Where we are sending bits and bytes. What I'm seeing is that companies are moving at crazy velocity with very small groups of people, which is kind of the outcome of all of this. So maybe 50 people companies can crack 100 million ARR, or Cursor is probably at 50 or whatever. They just cracked 100 million ARR. So I think that will happen more. And because of this is happening, enterprises, which basically there's a thing called you never get fired for buying IBM, right? Because IBM is insurance. Like, they'll take care of your, I'm not going to get fired. But with this happening, you will see a GE probably banking on a 20 people startup, because it kind of gets normalized that smaller groups of people with AI can move really fast and securely and doing well, right? So that kind of changes the whole way software functions. And so because of this, I feel like the entire stack is up for grabs. You know, like software, SaaS, and then B2C as well.
Yeah.
So
But will
it's
that?
just really great to build. And I've been building from 2004. It's great to build.
Yeah. What I always wonder is, okay, assuming that will happen, will that make a better world?
That's philosophical.
Yeah.
You don't know. Like.
Yeah, we don't know. I'm very curious now how can this will evolve.
I mean, we just want to sip wine and have fun, right? I mean, do you want to update Salesforce right now? I don't think so. Right? So I think that, like, the directional compass is that, you know? Like, I think that it needs to be, and I'm not educated enough to think about policy, and,
Yeah.
like, I think Ilya
We're
is-
from Europe, we can think about police.
Yeah, so I think policy is Ilya and some other people, right? But I just think that Sam Altman did a post yesterday, right, around unevenness around the distribution of AI, right? So not everybody's going to benefit at the same rate. So it's up to us to actually govern that.
Maybe there's a good final question before we move to some Q&A. Like, what excites you the most about AI in the coming years? If you had to state one thing, what are you excited for? You kind of mentioned like the integration, the interaction between agents. Like, what else would you be excited on?
I think different people are at different phases of my life, you know, like, so my life is like, you know, this is my third company, and essentially, like, people who are in their 30s and 40s, right? I think enterprise software became very boring. Like 2017, 2018, you build a SaaS, you know the left navigation, you have the settings button, you go there, authentication, done, right? It's mostly done. And so now you're evaluating on, hey, can I build relationships and can I crack G for 300K? So it became boring overall, right? So it's for software builders with business outcomes. I think with this thing, you're like very, like, you've seen the Joker movie, right? Joker says that I just like anarchy. So in a good way, I think that everything is open. Like, this is the generational opportunity after, and Konstantin Buehler from Sequoia, he was doing this Bloomberg interview. He said, this is the greatest moment after the Industrial Revolution. That is debatable. I don't know whether I should, agree with that. But if that is true, then damn, man, this is awesome to live. Awesome time to live, right? So I think that I'm the most excited about the rate of change that we can, as builders and engineers and product people, orchestrate.
Yeah, I can double on that. I think that we are really building we are living a new paradigm. So we are shifting from the status quo that we were living in building the software, like the description of an interface, to something completely new that really help us to rethink completely. What I like is really about what you're saying. Okay, there is traditional software and you're just incrementally increasing and adding capabilities, versus the real change is, okay, forget about everything that was happening up until now and think about something completely new with the new capabilities that you have. And it changed life. And if we take concrete example, one of my favorite one on rethinking that and making new things completely possible. When I was thinking, I was working at Helium, knowledge sharing platform, thinking about Notion, but more for enterprise things. When I was working there like 5 years ago, we were thinking about, we have that gigantic access to data, and we segmented by companies, so very vertical. So every company was storing all their knowledge. We were stuck. Because we were thinking about language model and thinking we can do to re-access those things and really help our customers. We couldn't do it because it was way too expensive. All of a sudden now it's accessible. And it helped the company to rescale now and rethinking, approaching that completely differently. And you're right, thinking now the interface is completely useless. They were talking about agent and helping all their customers really accessing all that knowledge they stored and structured in a very completely different way, and they're really augmenting the people. And I think that was really exciting, is really thinking through things in a very different lenses and creating new experiences.
Yeah, I think I'm aligned. It's like it's a great time to build. Everything can be rethought from the ground up. I think it's a great time to be a founder. Yeah. Thinking reinventing UX in many different fields, and also new kinds of companies. That's what you said, Ayan. You can build like companies that are much more efficient as well. Like, and you can rethink. Okay, like is the the traditional way of scaling, does it still make sense? Like, do you need?
You don't need $100 million
Right?
anymore.
No, yeah. Or like, do you need to like raise a Series A and then recruit VPs and then like you do the traditional like sort of, and your job as a founder becomes like doing like executive meetings and like managing VPs who manage managers of managers of managers. Maybe not actually.
No,
So it's a time
efficiency,
where
yeah.
you can say, hey, like let's imagine new ways of scaling companies, and I think that's super exciting.
Yeah, it is.
Thanks a lot. So I want to take the opportunity to let you ask some questions to the speakers here. Does anyone have something? Yeah, let's start here. Ladies first.
First of all, thank you all for sharing these wonderful insights. And I just want to get to know a bit more about your companies and more specifically how you got your first customer.
Great one.
Who wants to start? I can start. Yeah, so the question was to learn about our respective companies and more specifically how we got our first customers. So for us at Cycle, so I was a product manager myself and I had a problem with the tools that were available to me and I wanted to solve my own problem. So that was my driver. And so the first customers, actually, I flew to San Francisco. I quit my job, and I'm like, okay, I have this idea that like product management needs better tooling, but I need to see like if the best product managers in the world that they hear, do they also have that problem? And so I came with the user research mindset, and I came 3 weeks. I interviewed like 50 people, and out of those 50 interviews, our first like 5 customers emerged, and they really felt like they were co-creating the product with me because you do user research, but you also sell your vision, and then you come back to them, hey, like I worked on this mock-up, how does that sound? And so yeah, I had our first 5 customers like that, and even our first like 5-10 business angels, just because I realized that here everyone is a business angel. So you do user research, and then it turns into a pre-seed.
Yeah. What about you?
Ampersand is, as I mentioned, it's a developer infrastructure product for integrations. This is a problem that I was running engineering at a large company before this, and we had 24 people doing it. Right? So integrations, for example, I was the VP manager G2. G2 sends a lot of enterprise data into these systems like Salesforce, Marketo, right? And we had a 24 people team building it, and nobody wanted to do it. Right? So it's something that was business critical from an engineering standpoint. But engineers don't wake up in the morning thinking I'm going to do the V17 of Salesforce integration. Right? Nobody thinks like that. But the product and the business people are like, oh, this is a 100K, 500K, a million. Like we were selling a 3 million contract, and that integration needed to be really good. Right? So we tried to buy a bunch of things. We couldn't because of whatever reasons, and then I basically started asking around, like, is this a problem at your company? I knew a bunch of other heads of engineering, and everybody was like, man, this is like crazy. Business critical problem, but the people doing it don't want to do it, right? So we are building like this product where engineering really likes working with our product. So they're like, oh great, I can quickly build this, and then I don't have to maintain it for the rest of my life. Right? So that's kind of we are helping engineering not get into the maintenance nightmare, and that's translating to some success.
So just a clarification question. So you started off with a point where you started off with tasks that engineers basically hate the most.
Yes.
And then find common pain points across different companies.
Sure. Yeah. And I also wanted to work on something that engineers hate, but PMs and business people are like, give it to me today. Right? So essentially there's this dichotomy between what is business critical and what is fun to build. Right? And there are like generational companies that you can build out of those. Right? Datadog, for example, like nobody wants to build observability unless it's an observability company, right? So there are many products and businesses like that, and those are products also that can grow really rapidly.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm not tech. If I'm not building tech software anymore, so I'm more a consulting firm. So how we acquire our first one? Well, with a VC who invested in our companies before. And I would say that we are doing the things that tech cannot do. So it's dealing with the people side of things, and then also putting in our money where my mouth is by investing in companies like Cycle and bringing them among their first customers, if I remember well.
And we send them. All we want to do is sell platform fees. Right, we don't want to deal with implementations and stuff, so we send them like integration partners. Yeah. Like if you want to talk to people who will do meetings with you, those are the guys.
Voilà. So no, I've been in the tech for the past 13 years before building that firm. I like what you're doing. So the one thing that I've seen is that the best companies, the most successful one, are really the one that are solving a must-have problem, a must problem, and not a nice-to-have. And I think that's the one thing people most of the time confuse when they're building something. They are solving a problem when you say, yeah, but if you can do it without your solution, then probably, yeah, you will struggle. The one solution that really make the difference is the one where you pull them off, people are suffering. Exactly what you're saying. So if you're struggling with the volume of feedback that you're receiving, because ultimately, as a human being, you can't sort them all, and you need a way to re-access and pull that information. Then you're creating something that makes the difference, and that's what you're building the strongest applications.
Just to finish that thought, if a chief product officer or a VP of product joins us for a one-on-one customer discovery, because sometimes VP of products reach out and like, hey, I want to know more, right? So I ask, hey, great, nice to meet you. Do you have a PM on this problem? And they're like, yeah, we have a PM on this problem. So I ask, on a 0 to 10 scale, 10 being, I'm going to quit today, where are they? Right? And people have said they're at 9. I'm like, okay, we should do business.
Yeah, we have the same problem. Is that the best deal is when the board is calling us, say, please fix the problem.
I think we're all hungry, so maybe
it's time to.
Question from someone. I don't know who to choose. Who's going to speak up first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So why do you think that the agents don't care about the UI? It's like the APIs have been super fragile, and I thought that UI for the agent is an API, so if you wouldn't mind elaborating on that.
I mean, AI, that was probably my point. I mean, AI agents don't really care about whether it's UI, whether it's API. They're just trying to grab data and do a bunch of things and move on, right? So my hypothesis is that it's a multi-dimensional problem, right? So the first thing is like humans authenticating into a system is different than an agent authenticating into a system. Because agents are going to impersonate the human to some extent, right? So fine-grained access control is going to be very important, right? Let's say I am supposed to update the CRM with a critical data, right? But I'm delegating access to an agent, which
you as a person.
As a person, I'm like, I don't want to update CRM, right? I'll give access to an agent which does the boring job, right? So that I can sip some wine, right? So essentially, but I'm giving a particular access control. So the authentication and the authorization layer for humans and agents working on a common platform, my hypothesis, just a hypothesis, that it's going to be rebuilt to some extent, right? So that is one. So how do you access the system? And then after that, agents like machines don't really care. They don't have emotion till now, right? They don't have emotion to understand the difference between whether, like, if I throw you a violent pink button, you'll be like, it is hurting, right? The AI agent doesn't care, right? They just want to click it, right? So I think that if you are designing software for some of these agents, then, and that becomes important because you're like, okay, lots of agents are accessing my software, then you start to deprioritize humans and start to think about agents and how they think, right? And there could be some conflict. But at the end of the day, it's a database that both of us are trying to, humans and agents are trying to access the database. The UI layer is on top to make it easy, right? So maybe we'll just go and get the data itself, right? And those are, I don't have the answers, but if these are the problems, we don't have clear answers to them right now. You know, and that are a lot of generational opportunities actually in this.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you all for coming, and I hope you are taking home a couple of insights on building AI products.